I haven't felt this level of conviction in the market since late 2020. The macro data that just dropped and what's about to happen next week has created maybe one of the most lopsided risk to reward opportunities in the entire market. In this video, I'll show you why this setup is so rare and exactly what it means going into 2026. And I'm going to be diving into the massive amount of macro data that came out this week, including the jobs numbers, the CPI and PPI numbers, and exactly what that means for Fed cuts going into next week. But not only next week, but what that means for Fed cuts going into the end of the year and the start of next year. I'm also going to be showing the charts that show that today's setup almost perfectly mirrors exactly what it looked like right before the bull run in 2021. And lastly, I'll be revealing and talking about what I'm currently buying to prepare for this setup that I believe is sort of like a once in a lifetime level setup with all the different ingredients, this perfect storm that's coming together, and why today I'm more bullish than I have been at any single point over the last 3 years. All right, let's start with the massive 911,000 payroll revision that came out this week. This is the single largest negative revision ever. And basically what this shows is the economy is a lot weaker and has been a lot weaker because these are actually past revisions than the Fed and everyone else had anticipated. And this is sort of a case of bad news is good news because it shows that the economy is weakening. But the response to this weakening economy is for the Fed to cut rates. And I've talked about this a lot in past videos. You got to think of everything in terms of policy response because there's certain policy responses that are actually really bullish asset prices. And then there's other policy responses that are really bearish asset prices. And this is one of the bullish ones. This one almost guaranteed that we were going to get a rate cut in September. When these numbers came out, it was like the odds for a September rate cut skyrocketed to like 99% that we were going to get a rate cut in September because the Fed had no choice at this point but to cut rates because the economy is weakening. And the way that we offset the economy weakening is to strengthen the economy. It's to do things that are going to make the economy pick back up, like cutting rates, like injecting liquidity, like loosening credit. These are all things that help the economy get going again, help the economy to run hot like Scott Bessent and Trump want. And these are all things that make asset prices go up. And I'm not here to talk about politics, but what this does mean is that as Trump goes to stack the Fed board going into 2026, this adds a lot of legitimization to whoever he appoints to the Fed board. Because it looks like, in hindsight, Trump was actually correct. We did actually need cuts, which certainly gives him and his appointees the upper hand as they continue to cut going into 2026. Now, I've talked about before that like the number one thing that could end the bull market is going to be inflation. Inflation is really the thing to watch in terms of when is the party over? When does this thing end? And so along with job numbers this week, we also got PPI and CPI numbers that came out. And first on Wednesday, PPI numbers came out. And these numbers actually surprised in a good way as PPI inflation fell to 2.6, well below the expectations of 3.3%. On top of that, core PPI inflation fell to 2.8% below expectations of 3.5%. This is extremely bullish because this is a type of inflation that gets measured upstream of like every other kind of inflation. So when you see PPI inflation go up, that's really scary because, you know, that might mean that we're going to see inflation bleed into everything else, because this type of inflation sits upstream of the economy. But when you see this inflation go down, that's a really bullish sign that potentially we could see inflation going lower. And finally, on Thursday, we got CPI numbers. These came in line with consensus. So basically, what everyone thought they would come in at, they came in at. There was no surprises here. The market had already priced it in, which is really good news because basically when PPI numbers and the job data came out, that was basically had sealed the deal that we're going to definitely get rate cuts next week. It's more the scale of the rate cuts we're going to get is what the CPI numbers could maybe adjust. If they came in really bullish, maybe we get some massive rate cuts going to the end of the year. And if they came in really bearish, maybe they're a little bit more cautious with those rate cuts. And this was more just neutral, like not really much happening. Overall, it was showing that inflation is just kind of remaining sticky. It's not going crazy. It's not going lower. It's just kind of going sideways, a little bit of sideways chop. And I really like this chart because it really puts it into perspective. This is the Fed's target. This is what happened in 2021. This is why everyone's so traumatized about inflation, and like every single thing that could possibly raise inflation, everyone like throws a fit about, is because this happened. And this happened while the Fed and everyone was saying, hey, it's transitory, don't worry about it. And turns out it was a huge deal. So now anytime anything happens, they're like, we need to really worry about this because we're going to see, COVID level inflation reaccelerate, and it's going to get out of control. But really, I think there's a lot of recency bias in that, like, we just went through this, so people are freaked. But as you can see, it's been mostly going down to sideways. Like, it's just kind of sitting here in this like little range. And as I've talked about since last year, it's been my belief that from tariffs and all this kind of stuff, we weren't going to see this massive reacceleration of inflation, and that it really just wasn't going to be that big of a deal, or as big of a deal as everyone was making it out to be. And that, of course, brings us to rate cuts. As I said, rate cuts are in the bag now. There is nothing that's going to stop us from getting a September rate cut. It would be absolutely unhinged, insane for us not to get a September rate cut at this point. The rate cuts at this point are all but guaranteed. Like, if the Fed does not cut this month, I'm pretty sure that would be the point that Trump actually throws Powell out. And I think almost the market would think that was justified at that point, because it would just be an insane level of negligence for that to happen. There's just like almost no way that we don't see a rate cut this month. As you can see, the market is currently pricing this in on Polymarket at about 98% chance that we see a rate cut. And as you can see, looking forward into October, we are pricing in currently about a 71% chance that we're going to see some sort of rate cut in October as well. And if you actually look at the bond market right now, they're actually pricing in around 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. So, one in September, one in October, one in December. And this is something that I talked about at the beginning of the year that I actually thought I was going to end up being wrong on, which is I said we'd get around 3 to 4 rate cuts in 2025. And so far, I've been like horribly wrong on that, but man, it looks like maybe I might have a come from behind win on that prediction if we end up actually getting these 3 rate cuts in 2025. And currently, the market is pricing in another 3 rate cuts in 2026. So 3 rate cuts this year, 3 rate cuts over 2026, a total of 6 rate cuts over the course of the end of this year and 2026. I actually think that might even be a little bit conservative because I think they're underestimating how redonkulous the Fed could get once Trump kind of has stacked it in his favor. And I think Trump likes things big. He likes things bold. And I think we're going to go a little bit further with these cuts than maybe the market currently expects. But either way, whether you think it's 6 rate cuts or more, 6 is enough for an absolutely unhinged credit cycle and an absolutely unhinged move up in asset prices. And if you guys remember from my video last week, I talked about that I thought at minimum, I was pricing in around 6 rate cuts. And if we got that, this is what the $7 chart would look like. So it would flip from where it is right now, which is not looking very bullish, to actually quite a bullish setup. And when you throw the ESLR in there, it gets into a like ridiculously bullish setup. And then if you account for maybe some more rate cuts, maybe a Russia peace deal, and some other shenanigans that could happen next year, definitely a decent, like somewhat chance of those things happening. Next year could line up to be the year, not just a year, not just a good crypto bull run, not just a good alt season, but either somewhere between 2017 and 2021, or if you take in market structure and like institutional adoption and these ETFs and Clarity Act and all that kind of stuff, I actually think there's a non-zero chance that we could see a cycle bigger than 2021. I know 2021, like in terms of liquidity, it's going to be unmatched. But in terms of the direction of liquidity and market structure, I think those things could push crypto specifically, not the stock market, but crypto specifically, into absolute overdrive where maybe crypto has sort of its .com moment, kind of run over the course of 2026. I'm not saying for sure that's going to happen. I'm just saying I wouldn't, absolutely discount the possibility of that happening. And really quickly, I want you to take a look at this chart. This is a chart from before 2021. If you were to look at this chart back then, you would think, man, this is a dead project. This is a dead token. Obviously don't touch this thing with a 10-foot pole because this thing ain't going anywhere. And there's quite a few charts like this that look like this back before the bull run in 2021, where prices were cheap, people were selling, everyone was kind of feeling deflated. And it wasn't like, hey, like this is an obvious buy. It was like, hey, this thing looks like it's a rug and I'm done. And this is around November 22nd, 2020. So this is about a year before 2021. You can see this token is priced at 0.00020661. Fast forward to 2021, this is what the chart looks like. And you can see that token, this is November 20th right here. So you can't even tell, it's just like so small in the chart. And you can see that that token went from whatever, 0.0001 or whatever to 71 cents. That is a 3,000x gain. That would turn every $1,000 you invested into $3 million. And, you know, at that point, back in 2020, people are looking at that price and they're like, hey, I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. It looked stupid. It looked like something you didn't want to buy. It looked dead, like it was over. Like, hey, you know, this, you know, anyone could have bought here. And not a lot of people wanted to buy because it just didn't seem like a good place to buy at the time. But fast forward, it was an insanely phenomenal place to buy, and the chart did not tell you the full story of what was going to happen in the future. Same thing with PancakeSwap. This is October 26, 2020, and you can see it was sitting around 31 cents. Fast forward 6 months later, and it had gone from 31 cents to $42.46. And so again, anyone could have bought it down here and been like, hey, you know, I'm a buyer. I want to buy. You know, it actually went lower than that. It went down as low as 22 cents. It looks like over here. Anyone could have bought it over here at 22 cents. It didn't look like a thing you wanted to buy when it was that time. It looked like, hey, you know, this might not be a good project to own or hold. Look, it's just red. It just looks like it's going nowhere. And then boom, that liquidity hits. That's the all season hits, and it goes up to $42. $42.46. That is like 137x return. That would turn every $1,000 you invested into $137,000. Again, this is what it looked like right before alt season hit. And to show you guys in terms of market cap, this is Gala Games sitting at December 24th, 2020. It's sitting at 1.6 million in market cap. This is Gala Games January 2nd, 2021, sitting at 8 million in market cap. So that's around the size that Avo's at today. This is Gala Games March 6th, 2021. So just like a few months later, sitting at 242 million in market cap. And this is Gala Games less than a year later, sitting at $5.3 billion in market cap. This is Audius. I've never even heard of this token. I guess it popped off last cycle, but it's just one I wasn't aware of. But you can see on November 9th, 2020, it was sitting around $8 million in market cap. Again, this is really similar to the current market cap of Avo. Fast forward 3 months later, and it's sitting at $71 million in market cap, which that's insane. It's almost like a 10x that it's done in 3 months. And then fast forward to November 23rd, so about a year later in 2021, it's sitting at $1.4 billion in market cap. I do this to really highlight the playbook that I am playing off of. This is why I'm not selling these tokens when they do a 3x or a 5x or whatever. This is why I'm super comfortable holding these tokens even when they're going down. Like Winter, if you look at the Winter chart, it's not that dissimilar to something like Gala in its early days where it's just like down only, okay? This is why it doesn't freak me out. This is why it doesn't scare me, because all of my bets hinge on alt season. And I'm not going for the like 2x or 3x plays. I'm looking for like those 100x, those 1000x plays. Those are really hard to hit. But like a prerequisite of hitting those is you got to be able to hold through the storms and over long periods of time, and got to position early when the chart looks like this so that you can get in before the chart looks like this. And this is what I mean by an asymmetric bet. When I say I'm placing asymmetric bets, I can lose 100% of my capital, but I can make far more if I'm right about this liquidity wave coming, you know, all these rate cuts coming, credit loosening, etc. If I'm right about that, and we're going to see this reflected in risk assets like alts, then the upside is crazy. Like it's potentially absolutely insane. And that's what I'm waiting for. That's why, like, you know, everyone's like, oh man, you're just doing this to pump, you're posting this video to pump your own bags. And it's like, that's kind of true in the sense that I'm like, I want to educate people about these tokens so they know about them come all season. But I'm not like doing it so that I can get this like, you know, 2x pump off of my video over the next 2 weeks. Like I'm not selling any of that. Of my Avo tokens, I've talked about Avo like 3, 4, 5 times now. I've never sold a single token. I only buy more. And that might seem crazy to some of you guys who are, you know, stuck in meme coin trenches, and you're like, you always sell. Like that's what you've been taught. You've been taught during this bear market that like, hey, as soon as it does double or even like it goes up 50%, you sell and then you get out because that thing's dead. You guys are going to be like, you guys that are stuck in that have been like psyoped into believing this like way of trading that's going to really hurt you if I'm right about all season, because you're going to sell way too early and then you're going to watch it do something insane like this. And you're just, that's painful. That is like insanely painful and will mess with your brain. And so, you know, that's not how I operate. I operate off of like, hey, I'm kind of all or nothing. This is going to work out or it isn't. And if it works out, yeah, like, will I sell eventually? Yeah, I'm going to sell all these things eventually. But I'm not looking for a 3x or a 5x or a 10x. I'm looking for 100x, a 500x, a 1000x. And I'm going to wait until liquidity is just pumping, and it is just like the coursing through, the risk assets, and things are going bananas, and everyone's thinking it is time to buy. When the market's like that and there isn't a single bear in sight, that's when I'll be looking to sell. When you guys think it's crazy to sell, that's when I'm going to be looking to sell. So, and it won't even matter at that time because there will be plenty of buyers to meet me and let me exit out. In all likelihood, with a lot of these tokens, when I sell, they'll probably go a little bit higher than after I sold, and I'm okay with that because that's how I'm structuring my setup with asymmetric bets and the way I'm doing it. Some people don't want to do that. You want to passively invest. You want to hold it for 10 years or whatever. That has literally nothing to do with what I do. If that's your goal, then this is the wrong place for you. You should just probably hold Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that, and you can just buy and hold for the next decade, and you're probably going to do good. I deal in high risk, high reward, asymmetric bets. That's the kind of plays that I like to make. And hopefully this gives you kind of a general understanding of the playbook that I'm playing off of going into 2026. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what I'm currently buying leading up to what I believe is going to be similar to what you've seen in those charts, a crazy alt season. First and foremost, if you haven't seen my video from earlier in the week where I talked about AVO, I bought some more AVO yesterday at 8 million market cap. Happy to keep buying these levels. As I've said, if it was sitting at $800 million in market cap, I'd be happy to buy AVO. They are going after a slice of the $128 trillion asset management market, and they're doing it using AI agents. So they got this insanely powerful narrative. I think AI tokens are going to just be explosive during this next alt season, coupled with an actual insanely good use case. And they have a really good product. So you couple those three things together, and not to mention like really ridiculously good branding. I think that's a recipe for like an extremely viral token. And so that's why I'm really well positioned in AVO, and I'm happy to keep buying. If you guys do not follow AVO on X, their socials are insanely good. You got to check it out. They do a really good job at this, and just like updates and posting and all this kind of stuff. After AVO, the second token that I'm currently looking at and buying is Virus from Pandemic Labs. If you guys remember, I'll do at some point in the future, I'll do a full video breakdown of Pandemic Labs and everything they're doing, because I think it is insanely bullish and a lot of people are discounting it. This is actually in November of 2020. The market cap sitting down here at 6 million in market cap. It's evolved quite a bit since those days, but back then, I'm trying to see if I could find a screenshot or something. It was just these little guys that battled each other in like on a 2D format. It was really simple, kind of like a lot of people complained it was a really boring game. But despite that, this thing went from $6 million in market cap to, at its height, this is actually unhinged, it went to, at its height, over $10 billion in market cap. And so, a lot of people discount how frothy things get during alt season and how many of these narratives really take off. But I think, I wouldn't discount crypto gaming. And I think in a lot of ways, Pandemic Labs has kind of pioneered this new concept or this new sort of social gaming, which I really think has some potential to take off in terms of like what they've been building and what they've been doing, because it's really similar to like meme coin trading and all the speculation that people love around that, but built in these gamified social ways. They're just really fun. And so far, they've had 3 games. So they've had Infected.Fun, which did insanely well. Like tens of thousands of people showed up. Insider also did insanely well. I don't know the exact numbers, but just they had a ridiculous amount of signups. And the way it worked was like with Infected, they had like different diseases. Basically, think of meme coins, but they're like each a different disease, and they're competing to be. And there's like special mechanics that aren't normally present in meme coins, and so they're competing to be the most infectious disease. With Insider, it was like different companies, but they were just like made up companies. There were jokes on real companies, and each of them was competing to become the dominant company and kind of like absorb the other companies. And so like they had CEOs and all kinds of fun stuff. And a lot of people got really into this game. I bought some more of this one today, and there's a ridiculous amount more I want to buy of this one, but it just keeps going up. It's actually kind of annoying me right now, but it's currently sitting at $3.5 million in market cap. It's super tiny. Again, if this thing goes to 30 million or whatever, like I'm not looking to sell. I'm going to keep buying like as time goes on. Same thing with AVO. Like at AVO right now, it's gone from 3 million in market cap to currently sitting at 8.7 million. I bought some more yesterday at 8 million. I have a lot more I want to buy. I'm kind of hoping we get a correction, but I just don't know. It just keeps going higher, and this is also kind of annoying me because I'm wanting to get in, not because I'm worried about necessarily the next couple of weeks, but as much as like I'm worried about what's going to come after October, November, December, is like if we get this alt season like bid that I'm expecting, like these things could go crazy. They could go if they don't they don't take off, then whatever. Like maybe I make a little money, maybe I lose a little money. But what I'm playing for is these asymmetric, the asymmetric upside that comes with alt season. I'm currently looking to stack more UNA. I am insanely bullish on UNA. ridiculously bullish on Una. They're just crushing it across everything with all of their branding, all the things that they're building. I think they're seriously one of the most underrated projects in all of crypto, and I'm really excited about where they're going with everything. And also kind of alongside that, the HANA token, it's an AI agent token, so I don't put a lot of emphasis on it, and I don't hold a ridiculous amount of this one because I don't know. I struggle to hold agent tokens, and I'd rather hold Una, which is like the whole ecosystem token. But I might end up even buying some more HANA just because, they're doing a really good job like productizing her and making her sort of this main character for the Unagi ecosystem, the Persona, world. And they just started doing these really cool lo-fi kind of like study and chill things that sit live. You can see there's 2,000 people watching this right now. They're doing a really good job productizing, kind of following a Pudgy Penguins playbook, where like on Giphy, they're getting like, I don't know, millions of views on these GIFs that are related to Persona. I've highlighted before HANA Studios, which is like an AI art and video generation site that uses the Una token. And just they're doing a really good job, not only leaning into narratives, but actually releasing some pretty awesome products, etc. And that just has me really bullish for the future of Una. And I know some people are like maybe a little more hesitant to buy it since it's not like 3 million market cap or whatever, 8 million market cap. But I think that's kind of stupid. Their liquidity is super low, which means it could move up insanely fast, especially compared to like Avo. Avo actually already has at 8 million way more liquidity than this. So this could skyrocket like way higher, even though it's already sitting at a high market cap. It could go significantly higher just based on the low float of the current liquidity. And this is what I'm definitely looking at, slowly buying more and more as we head into what I believe is going to be an alt season, because this is another one that I think has a lot of potential to go significantly higher from here. And then, of course, there is Research Coin, which I talk about all the time. And because I talk about it so much, I'm not going to do a huge deep dive into it. But Research Coin is co-founded by Brian Armstrong. I think that is one of the most stickiest narratives I've ever heard. And I think when retail shows up, they're going to just absolutely go nuts over Research Coin in the DeSci space. And if you don't really understand what I'm saying, think like tokens like XRP, Chainlink, etc., which really have this huge retail base of believers. They don't even really know what they believe in. They just like think it's like, oh, it's kind of sounds sci-fi, so they buy it. Like, go ask them what, they'll say some crazy stuff when you ask them about like what it does. Like they're like, oh yeah, XRP is connecting banks and stuff, and I hear everyone says to buy it. It's going to 1,000 or whatever, which that's crazy. That's actually crazy. But part of what I look at is like, I'm not going to just like ignore reality of like how retail invests. And I think Brian Armstrong and DeSci, like it's a really sticky narrative, and they're also actually doing cool stuff. So it's not just a sticky narrative. It's like there's a lot more to it. That gets me really pumped at the future of something like Research Coin and what it could do and its potential going forward. Especially kind of as we're seeing this wave of like AI and like science kind of combining. And they've leaned a little bit into AI, but I have this feeling that they're going to probably lean more and more into AI. But even if they don't, the scientific funding industry is like a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So even capturing a slice of that is like huge upside. And finally, since I mentioned it earlier, obviously there's a lot of tokens I invest into. It's not just these ones. There's a huge amount. I have my 10K to a million portfolio. I have, my full portfolio, which is a lot more tokens. I'm just, for the sake of time, not going to highlight all of them. I'm just highlighting, I guess, the ones right now that I'm like trying to accumulate more of. Some of these other ones like Akash, I'm really bullish on, but I already hold a lot of Akash, or like Cow, etc. Like I already hold a lot of these things. Right now, Winner is sitting down in just like the gutters. It's like currently at 3.3 or 3.13 million in market cap. And the chart looks, again, abysmal. You look at this thing and you're like, why would I want to hold this token? Like, this doesn't look good. But again, this isn't that dissimilar to what I showed you earlier with Gala Games and what the chart looked at like at first. The chart doesn't have to look good. Too many people put this like weird emphasis on like, what does the chart look like? Which is crazy because the chart only shows you what has happened in the past, right? But that doesn't indicate anything about what could happen in the future. Like this chart, arguably looks worse than Winner's chart. It had this big pump, which it got some attention, and then it just like fell into the dumps, and it wasn't doing really good. But when that liquidity came, that attention came back, and then it went all the way up here. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. And so I try to envision like, how will this project be perceived? Not today when nobody wants to buy, but how will this project be perceived when everyone is itching to buy? They're all looking for the next big thing, and they're attaching really hard to these narratives. What are people going to do? What are they going to buy? And Winner's already shown that when there's like the market flips pretty positively, like it does get a lot of attention. People want to buy it. And if you look at it, like their narrative and like the gambling narrative in crypto has always been around, and gambling projects and like the future of on-chain casino stuff has always done really well. But what they're building is actually pretty dang unique. And they're just a ridiculously good team when it comes to just overcoming challenges. And like every time they hit a roadblock, they just, build this crazy new thing. They are tapping into AI. So WinnerBet AI adapts to the imagination of its users. They have this whole idea of like social media, like bet on anything kind of play, which I don't know. I don't know if it works out or not, but a lot of these things, when all season hits, a lot of these things flip into narratives, what's been built, and kind of people look at the market through this different lens. And I try to keep my brain kind of wired to look at the market through that lens and, scoop up some of these things on the cheap. When I think that we're going to see this huge burst in liquidity and cheap credit going into the future. And so to summarize, the economic data that came out this week is insanely bullish. I cannot imagine an outcome where we do not get a rate cut next week. And I kind of feel like, I know September, I was one of the ones that said this, September is typically bearish. And that is seasonally how it is. But as I've mentioned in past videos, I'm starting to kind of feel like maybe this September doesn't end in the red, but it's actually one of the few rare Septembers that ends in the green, just given the current setup with rate cuts. Like I think it's kind of up only from here. I don't see why we would go lower. It's kind of dangerous to say that right now, but I just genuinely don't see it. Like barring some crazy geopolitical event, I see no reason why we would head lower from here. Yeah, we have the TGA rebuild happening, but that's not impacting the liquidity as much as was expected because of some other dynamics that are currently in play. But also, I think the sentiment from rate cuts is going to offset that, and we just kind of float up into October, and then we just continue to kind of grind higher into the end of the year. And if you're curious about seeing my entire portfolio, or you want to see every time I buy and sell various tokens, as well as different weekly video market updates, currently the Obsidian Council is closed to new members, but you can sign up for the waitlist in the description of this video. As always, none of this was investment advice. None of this was me telling you to do anything with your money. I am obviously not your financial advisor, and you should always do your own research.